Octopath 2 is a great game. It adds to an already amazing battle system from 1, adds quality of life improvements, and adds so much more character interaction between characters thanks to crossed paths, something that many wanted after 1's lackluster character interactions at times. However, my favorite thing they added for this game is the Journey for the Dawn. It's a perfect ending that ties all of the stories and those side characters that slipped your mind together into one final package, as a reward for being all of the main story quests and crossed paths. If you couldn't tell, this will spoil the entire story of Octopath Traveler 2. So if you haven't beaten the Journey for the Dawn and the main game of Octopath 2, I would recommend throwing this into your watch later folder so you don't get spoiled, and you can come back when you're ready. Alright, now let's get into why this is the perfect ending for Octopath 2. Let's start with one of the most important things. All 8 characters are actually interacting with one another. I cannot stress enough to you how cool this is. Unfortunately for Octopath 2, the characters' stories are still mostly just the one character interacting with everything, with no input from the other party members besides for small conversations that happen once or twice per chapter. And although crossed paths is a great way to show more in-depth interactions between characters, it's only between 2 of 8. The interactions are not necessarily mind-blowing, but it is cool to see all 8 of the party members interact and talk about what they want to do in the future. Like how Casti wants to revive Air's apothecaries, Partitio's plans for the steam engine, and how Throne just wants to go somewhere that isn't on a map. And then, in typical RPG fashion, everything goes haywire. And welcome to the Journey for the Dawn. All 8 characters interact with one another in every cutscene, which is really cool. It's nice to just have a shorter story with all 8 characters acknowledging each other's existence outside of battle quotes. The environment once the shadow takes over the realm is really creepy and adds a lot to the experience. There's no music, and if there is, it's just a creepy piano melody. I feel like I went from playing Octopath to playing Resident Evil or something. Anyway, the way through this is pretty simple. You just have to relight all 4 of the sacred flame lights, and the map gives you a pretty good hint to where all 4 of those are if you forgot. Which is nice because I didn't want to look up a guide if not required. It's subtle but points the player in the general right direction. You also get the ability to swap freely between party members without having to visit a tavern, which is admittedly a weird feature to add once I'm already 60 hours into the game. I feel like this should have just been an option from the get-go, but it's a nice quality of life, so I won't complain too much. But fear not, there are 2 boss fights, and I somehow did them both as my first and second relit flames. So I was expecting 2 more fights, but that just never happened, so that's cool. Anyway, Mint being revealed as the mastermind between all the stuff that happened in everyone's story is an insane revelation. She was the one pulling all the strings, supporting Harvey's endeavors at trying to beat Oswald, supporting the Dark Hunter killing Cataracta and Glasses' egg, helping Caldana try to get revenge on the Church and Sacred Guard, and supporting Claude's dream of having a battle royale for his perfect descendant. She was even indirectly responsible for Trousseau going insane because Claude convinced him to think that the world should end. She also ended up manipulating Tansy, who was recovering from her significant other dying, and convinced her to find Totohaha's sacred flame, and then to reward her for her efforts, she ended up killing her to kill off Flame Church's sacred flame. When you look at every character that gets caught in her web, it's genuinely depressing, because most of them were innocent before then. Also, her boss fight was genuinely pretty fun, as are all the boss fights in this journey. However, Ori's was genuinely the most depressing for me. Her fall from grace is conveyed through 17 journal entries that are for some reason put out of order from 13 to 17 in the way you find them in the dungeon. Anyway, she barely got out of a warring kingdom thanks to her older brother Orobo, aka Kazan, and they both agreed that the world should end. She stalked the travelers during some of their journeys, including Timnos, Oswald, Casti, Hikari, and most notably, Partitio. She followed everything that Mint told her to do, but notably was willing to sacrifice herself to further Partitio's cause. As seen in the mirror flashback, she attempted to off herself, but barely escapes death, and it is heavily implied that Partitio's ideals of helping the entire world is the only thing that kept her from driving the knife deeper into herself, which would have killed her. She survives and is seen in the epilogue cutscene, which honestly was a huge relief because she was my favorite side character. But man, that made me realize that every character and everything can be an op. Like that lamp. Yes. The reason I'm telling you all this is because the game genuinely ties everything together in such a neat bow. You realize why characters acted the way they did, why Ori was always there somehow, why Kazan was so willing to help Hikari, and why Mint always told Temenos to write about his whereabouts. It genuinely helps elevate the story to the next level. Anyway, this would all be for naught if the final boss sucked, but luckily it doesn't. Unlike Octopath 1, where all 8 don't fight in the true final boss, this one incorporates all 8 party members, which unfortunately I wasn't expecting, so I got pummeled as soon as Phase 2 started the first time. The boss runs the perfect line of being difficult and long, but not so punishing if you lose. It only took me around 30 minutes to beat it in my second attempt, which I feel is pretty fair for the true final boss. It has 4 phases, where the first 2 you fight with the 2 separate parties of 4, and the last 2 you fight with all 8 combined, being able to swap between the parties freely. Phase 4 is definitely really punishing, where V-Day prevents you from reviving unless they're broken, which can definitely make this fight go really south quickly. But it was fun to play around 8 characters during that phase, which makes that a bit more bearable. Also, the music goes so hard. Square Enix's music direction in these games is always amazing. After beating the boss, you get greeted with one of the prettiest screens I've ever seen in gaming and unlock the epilogue, which is also amazing for its own reasons, like each character leaving in the order you recruited them, and all of them coming back together years later alongside all of the prominent side characters to watch Agnia dance. Okay, I've said a lot of positive things about it, but let's get into a few minor gripes I have. Firstly, it would be really nice if the extra stories icon on the map had a recommended level. The bosses are meant to be around level 50 to 55, which you should generally be around once you finish all the stories for all characters, but that would have been nice to know before jumping in. You'd have to look up a guide otherwise, and that can be easy spoiler findings. This could be rectified by perhaps locking this behind completing all side quests, as my main party was around level 60 once I did all the side quests, and that feels fair. Also, you get more context as to what's going on if you do the side quests, so I feel like it wouldn't be that bad of a change. Doing all the side quests only takes around 7 to 10 additional hours, at least in my experience. Also, locking formation to taverns before Journey for the Dawn is crazy. Was there really any reason to do this? You keep the ability to change formation on the fly after you complete it too, so it wasn't just because taverns were shut down because of the shadow or something. It's nice quality of life, but like, really? But that's me nitpicking. This being easily accessible after doing all the main story beats and cross paths is a huge upgrade over Octopath 1, where yes, there is a true ending like 2, but the true final boss being locked behind beating 8 shadow figures you have to fight in succession with no saves, and if you lose at any point you are sent back to the start, was way too punishing for a true end. That's for something more like a super boss. With V-Day only having 4 phases in it, being beatable in 30 minutes feels fair, as it does hurt when you lose, but you don't rarely lose hours of progress each time you lose. It's much more accessible for casual players, but also still incredibly challenging and is a great test of skill for the players who want to take the extra step. You don't necessarily have to have the best build to win, you just have to play smart and get a bit lucky. And for those crazy people who want that same challenge, there's an optional super boss that is insanely hard and requires you to be basically max level to beat it. Also, you can get an accessory that prevents random encounters. Which, yeah, I'm never doing that, but more power to those who do it. So yeah, this is the perfect ending for this game. It ties all 8 of the stories together, it has a unique map change, and it has all 8 characters interacting with one another. It's not necessarily the best ending ever, but it's the perfect ending for this game. But if you found this video interesting and you found the game interesting, I would still highly recommend you play it, even if you have been spoiled for most of the story beats. It's still a ton of fun. But thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please consider subscribing if you did enjoy the video. It's free and it helps support my channel a lot. Also, they help keep my lights on. And if they go off, it gets really scary. Like that. Subscribe!